How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, to recap the series between the Yankees and the Braves. The first series out of the All-Star break. I hope everybody had a good weekend. So let's talk about it. So the Yankees, in fact, did win this series, but it didn't look good in the beginning because coming out of the All-Star break, things ended on kind of a sour note, but not as bad as I think many people thought it was going to end because the Yankees actually, they swept the Mariners. You took the first game against the Cubs, and you figured, okay, take this series, go into the All Star break on a positive note, but then the offense ended up getting shut down by the Cubs. So, yeah, kind of on a sour note, but not as bad as how it could have been the way the Yankees have been playing over these last several weeks. So, going into this series against the Braves, look, the Braves, very disappointing season, but you still got Ronald Acuna Jr. you have to deal with. You still got to deal with Matt Olson and those guys. So, and the Yankees had to deal with Spencer Strider right out of the break. So, still thought this was going to be a tough series. And the last time the Yankees played in Atlanta, they got swept. That was back in 2023. So it didn't get off to a great start because what happened was originally Cam Schlittler was going to start. He was going to be the guy right out of the break for the Yankees. But then, the Yankees weren't announcing a starter. And, Yankee Universe is saying, what's going on? Why have they not announced who's going to be pitching yet? Well, it was going to be Cam Schlittler, but he had a bit of a bicep issue that ended up pushing him back. Now, he is going to start in the Blue Jay series, which is good. But we didn't know that at the time. So the Yankees were going with an opener. It was going to be Ian Hamilton. So right then and there, you're thinking, all right, right out of the break, here we go. Because, going into the All-Star break, the bullpen has been taxed. You want to give it a break, but then already the bullpen has to be tested because you have to do an entire bullpen game because you don't have a starter. So they went with Ian Hamilton, and they picked up Rico Garcia off waivers from the Mets, and then he was immediately DFA'd. After the game, Yankees were put behind the eight ball very quickly. Ian Hamilton just didn't have it, although he did pitch well in his relief appearance yesterday, but he really didn't give the Yankees anything. Pitched the first inning, gave up 3 runs, and already you figured the Yankees were probably going to end up losing this game. And then Rico Garcia comes in. He gives up a 3-run homer to Ozzie Albies, who had a couple of 3-run homers in this series. So, yeah, the Yankees were not going to come back from this. You just had that feeling. And then the Braves tacked on another run in the bottom of the 4th inning. Yankees did put up a 3-spot in the 7th, but they ended up losing the first game 7-3. And you had a great throw by Ronald Acuna Jr. One of the biggest plays from this game was Cody Bellinger hits a fly ball to right field, and Acuna ends up catching it in the corner. No crow hop, nothing. Just throws it flat-footed to third base. Yorba Vivas is tagging up, and he ends up getting thrown out at third base. And you can clearly see that Luis Rojas is telling him to slide. And he doesn't slide, and he ends up getting thrown out at third base with Aaron Judge coming up to the plate. And I was complimenting Vivas because I feel like even though Vivas is batting under 200 as well in his 20-something games of action, I feel like he does give you more of an at-bat than Oswald Peraza does. We saw in the Mets series, when he had that great at-bat, and then he had that infield hit that led to the Yankees taking the lead in the final game in the Bronx. He does work the count. So, I compliment him there, and then all of a sudden he gets thrown out at third base. When you see Luis Rojas is clearly telling him, slide, the ball's coming. And he doesn't, and he ends up getting tagged out, and that was bad, because you had Aaron Judge coming up next. So that wasn't great. But yeah, the bullpen game just didn't work out. Yankees, they strung together some runs, but they ultimately ended up losing that game 7-3. And then it didn't get any better because the Braves, they jump out to a 5-0 lead against the Yankees with Will Warren. Will Warren pitched a clean 2 innings to start the game, but gives up a run in the 3rd inning and then gives up another 3-run homer to Ozzie Albies. They get another run on bad defense by the Yankees, where you had a ball to the right side. Goldschmidt is coming all the way from first base to get the ball. Nobody's covering first base. Goldschmidt throws to Will Warren. Guy ends up being safe at first. Runner comes home. Warren throws home. He ends up being safe. If Goldschmidt just stays at first base, Jazz gets that ball. They're out of the inning. And then it's 4-0. Still. But it was 5-0. So going into the top of the fifth inning, you figured, yeah, it's just, again, not going to go the Yankees' way. And at that point, I'm saying, look, I'm teetering on the fact that, look, I keep saying this is a good team and that they're just playing poor baseball right now, but I don't know how much longer I could have kept saying that. Because if you lose this series here, when is it going to get better? But I would have said that let's see what happens at the trade deadline. And depending on what they do at the trade deadline, that will, and after that, how they play, that will really determine to me what kind of team they really are. Because, you're down 5-0, you're about to lose your second game to the Braves. I'm thinking, yeah, that I'm teetering because I keep trying to defend them and say this is still a good team, but again, I don't know how much longer I got to say it. So, yeah, 5-0 going into the fifth inning. Yankees did get a couple of runs off of an Anthony Volpe long ball to make it 5-2. So that was good. But then immediately after that, the Braves scored 2 runs in the bottom of the fifth to make it 7-2. And at that point, you're just like, it doesn't matter. They're just not going to come back. But against Enyel De Los Santos, who the Yankees acquired at the trade deadline last year, Bellinger gets on base. Judge gets on base, back-to-back singles. Stanton ends up walking. Then Jazz singles to score a run. Trent Grisham reaches on a fielder's choice. Matt Olson bobbles the ball. And that leads to everybody being safe to make it 7-4. Then Volpe hits a sac fly, which he hit the ball. He hit the ball well this weekend. He had a good weekend. So that made it 7-5. Wells then grounded out. That made it 7-6. And it was 7-6 after the top of the first. But the Braves did tack on another run. Scott Effross gave up a run. Matt Olson RBI single to score Jerkston Profar to make it 8-6. However, then Bellinger homered to make it 8-7, his 17th homer of the season. And then in the top of the 8th inning, Anthony Volpe hits another home run in this game to make it 8-8, to tie it. And man, did Volpe need that. And Joe Girardi and Michael Kay had a little bit of fun. They kind of predicted the home run right before it happened. So that was a big home run for Volpe. So in the top of the 9th inning, Goldschmidt hit a double to straightaway center field. I thought Michael Harris was going to catch it. It hit off his glove as he's slamming into the wall. Braves made a lot of good plays in this series. But Bellinger ended up flying out. Judge walked. Then Stanton walked. And then Jazz hits the ball the opposite way. You're thinking that's going to be a 2-run single or 2-run double. But Nacho Alvarez, who's playing at third base for the injured Austin Riley, he ends up making a great play on it. And I'm sitting there going, Yankees are probably going to end up getting walked off at that point. And then Trent Grisham comes up. And he hits a grand slam to put the Yankees up 12-8 with 2 outs. I couldn't believe it. But the Yankees still had to get through the bottom of the 9th inning. And Devin Williams did give up a run. There was some traffic on the bases, but he was able to get out of it. He strikes out Marcell Ozuna to end the game, and the Yankees win 12-9. What a comeback. And we were talking about the Mariners game when they were down 5-0. What a comeback that was. I mean, which one do you think is better? Was it the Mariners one or was it this one? I mean, I guess it was. I guess you got to say it was this one. And the grand slam in the 9th inning, how dramatic that was. And the Yankees have a history of, when they're scuffling a little bit, things tend to turn around for them in Atlanta. Because there are some comparisons. People are drawing comparisons from back in 2009 when Francisco Cervelli hit a big home run. And that woke them up. I think A-Rod hit a grand slam in that series too, if I'm not mistaken. He hit a home run too in one of those games. But what a win that was for the Yankees. So definitely a much better mood going into Sunday, but you still had Marcus Stroman on the mound. Didn't know what to expect because he's a guy that doesn't really give them length. And with the Braves still not performing well, it's still a kind of a tough lineup to navigate through. But Marcus Stroman, to give him credit, gave the Yankees length, 6 strong innings, 1 run, 5 hits, 4 strikeouts, and the bullpen did its job. Ian Hamilton pitched a scoreless 7th, Tim Hill pitched a scoreless 8th, and then Devin Williams did give up a home run to Ronald Acuna Jr. But Yankees won 4-2. They put up a 2 spot in the first inning right off the bat. Judge with his 36th homer of the season opposite field. And then Paul Goldschmidt later in the inning, an RBI single. Yorben Vivas got hit by a pitch with the bases loaded in the top of the 6th inning. That made it 3-0. Matt Olson had a long home run off of Stroman. Jazz Chisholm, a double in the top of the 7th. And he actually almost got a pitch clock violation called on him. But he said he called time. You could clearly see he's holding up his hand to call time. And the umpire did grant it to him. So he gets, called out on strikes there. You lose that run there. But he ends up getting that hit to score Judge. And like I said, Acuna had the home run in the bottom of the 9th inning off of Devin Williams. But Devin Williams picked up the save, got through it. And the Yankees won that game. And they take the series. They win 2 out of 3. Giancarlo Stanton had a good series, hit the ball very hard in this series. Yesterday had 3 singles, but they were all very hard hit balls. One of them was very close to getting out. But because he hit it so hard, and Stanton doesn't run well, he had to stay at first for a single. But Judge had a home run. Dominguez was 0 for 5 yesterday, kind of had a rough day. But Vivas made a good play. The Braves had a couple guys on base, and Profar bunted it foul, and Vivas made a diving catch to get that out there. But look, there were some bad plays in this series. Yankees made some bad plays in this series, but they made some good plays as well. I mean, I also didn't bring up nobody was covering second during I think it was the second game, and it was just like Yankee Universe is saying this is just not the Yankees series here, but they came back. So you got to be happy, all things considered, that the Yankees were able to take this series and now go into Toronto feeling good about themselves. They've definitely been playing better baseball as of late. You had a good homestand, although you did fall flat with the final 2 games against the Cubs. But, hey, compared to how you've been playing, you'll take it. You take this series against the Braves and how that was looking, because I'm sitting there, they're down 5-0. I'm saying they're probably going to get swept because the pitching matchups do not favor the Yankees. But now, because of the comeback and then, you're out in front from the start and Stroman pitches well, you'll take it. You'll take it. And now you will be going up against the Blue Jays. Now is their time to redeem themselves from the tough series from a few weeks ago where they got swept. Because that was tough. The Blue Jays just hit their pitching. And it's not like the bullpen was lights out. I mean, Loizaga struggled. The bullpen game just did not go the way they wanted it to, but I don't think anybody really was confident going into the first game out of the second half with this bullpen game thinking, yeah, this is going to go well. But the bullpen is still shaky. But Luke Weaver looks really good. He got some big outs in this series against the Braves. He looks like he's back to his old self, but we'll see how it goes against the Blue Jays. Devin Williams was a little shaky, but, I mean, compared to where he was in the beginning of the season, he's been lights out. Tim Hill has been solid. He's in that circle of trust. But it's just these other guys, Loizaga, just struggling to get guys out. JT Brubaker actually did pitch well in the first game. He pitched, I think he pitched 3 scoreless innings. See, I would have probably went to him to start just because he's got that starting experience. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to go out there and pitch a scoreless 3 innings. But at least, he has that starting experience. So rather than putting in a reliever, you put in a guy that does have that starting experience. That's just me. But, yeah, it's easier to say that now because, he pitched the 3 scoreless innings. But either way, he's got that starting experience. And you're telling me that the Yankees couldn't call somebody up, or I guess they couldn't reconfigure the rotation, have Warren or Stroman start. instead because that was originally going to be Schlittler's spot. I don't know. But that was just not the way to start out the second half because, everybody's raring to go like, all right, let's get ourselves back on track here. And then they come out like that. But they made up for it with the comeback win and then the win on Sunday. And that comeback win, like I talked about with the Seattle one, it could go a long way. It could go a long way. So keep that energy going. I don't think there's a lineup out yet, but I think Vivas deserves more playing time than Peraza. Peraza probably has the upper hand because he has the better glove, but I like Vivas and his at bats. I like his at bats better than I do Peraza. So, but the Yankees do need to address the third base position. That has to be addressed one way or another. And we'll get into a little bit of rumors in a second. But yeah, look, you'll take this series win. The lineup, when it's clicking, can be very dangerous. And if you can add a Eugenio Suarez to the middle of that order, it's only going to make that offense better. And you see how Spencer Jones is tearing it up in the minor leagues. I mean, he could be called up in September and you get to see him a little bit. I would not trade Spencer Jones. But if they could try to get Eugenio Suarez and not have to give up any of their top prospects, you do it. But if not, maybe try to find something else. But it's tough, though. It really is tough because there's not a ton available like there is in years past. But he is probably the best bat out there that's available. So, but yeah, this lineup, though, like with Bellinger and Goldschmidt's heating up, Judge, Stanton looks great. I mean, this is a dangerous lineup. And it's hard to keep everybody in there. Because you got to sit Ben Rice a lot. Grisham and Dominguez. Who's going to be sitting between them two? Stanton sometimes will have to sit, to give him some time off. It is tough to keep everybody in. But also, speaking of Anthony Volpe. Anthony Volpe has been put through the ringer for a while now. I think he's like the third worst qualified hitter in the major leagues since July 1st. He has not been great. But, it's been proven in the past that, when he has some time off, he tends to heat up again. And he was hitting the ball good. Like, the sac fly he had late, that was the deep center. There was another ball that he ripped in the first game to left center. That he hit the ball well there. So, and then he comes up big. That home run, that was clutch. That was clutch to tie the game. That 2-run homer, that made a difference too. Now, if the Yankees didn't make some bad plays in the field, it definitely would have, helped him out in that regard. But hey, they still won the game with the Grisham Grand Slam. But Volpe came up big in this series. And you hope that continues. It's been a really tough stretch. It's been a tough stretch for him. And not just with the bat, but with the glove as well. He's up there in errors. You want to see him turn it around. Yankee fans are giving up on him. Look, I wasn't going to say that I was giving up on him, but I definitely would say that, I was definitely in that, starting to get to that area as well, because now it's your third season. You got to show us something. And lately, it just hasn't been the case. It's been the exact opposite. Now, I don't think that this series is going to show us one way or another. Like, is he going to continue on this trajectory, or is he going to go right back to doing nothing? Let's see. But this is his job right now. This is the runway. there's nobody that is going to take his job. Not until next year. Next year is when you're going to have competition coming in if he doesn't turn it around. But this is hopefully the start of something good for Volpe, because he needed that. He really did need that. And if he continues this way, then social media is going to calm down. But we'll see. We'll see. But what a series for Volpe. Came up big. Grisham with the grand slam. Stanton had a good series. Bellinger. I mean, the guys did hit. And they showed you that even when they're down, they didn't roll over. They kept fighting. Like, even you could say, you could make the argument with Friday's game. They did show you some fight. And, you know, they came back from 5-0 against the Mariners. They came back from 8-0 against the Blue Jays. They've shown you during this tough stretch of baseball, now they're starting to come out of it a little bit, that when they're down, they're not out of it. Now, I would like to see them take the lead, especially in these games coming up against the Blue Jays, and not lose it. I don't want to keep playing from behind. You know, it's great, it's dramatic, but let's kind of deviate away from that a little bit. But they show fight. They show fight. They did show you that. And again, the Braves, record-wise, are not a good team. But they still have, you know, a former league MVP, All-Star Matt Olson. They still got good players on this team. Although Ozzie Albies going into this series, he's not having a good year at all. Then he's hitting home runs like crazy. He was putting up some good at-bats against Stroman yesterday, but Stroman got the best of him. And again, Marcus Stroman. Where were we with Marcus Stroman before the season started? Kept saying, I'm a starter. I'm not a reliever. I'm a starter. Gets hurt. Was not having a good year. His ERA was north of 11. Comes back, and since then, I mean, he's given the Yankees some innings. I mean, really 5 innings for the most part up until yesterday, where he put together 6 solid innings. But as a 5th starter, you get Luis Gil back, you'll take it. You'll take it. And you know what? Maybe with that time off that helped him. Because if you remember, you go back to the beginning of last year, Stroman was good out of the gate. And then as the season went along, he started to wear down. But maybe with all that time off, that helps him. Maybe that'll be the same thing with Luis Gil. Luis Gil's going to be back soon. But Yankees are going to be looking for some more pitching help. They need that. And now we go into the series against the Blue Jays. Yankees got swept in 4 games. It was the first time in franchise history that they've gotten swept in Toronto in a 4-game set. Now it's time to return the favor. Blue Jays have won 10 straight home games. They are still playing some really good baseball. And now they're right up there with the best records in baseball, because the Tigers, up until yesterday, when Skubal, of course, goes out there and pitches really well, they lost 6 straight games. The Dodgers have really come back down to earth because of, you know, the injuries to their pitching staff and really the injuries to, you know, some of their guys, and guys just underperforming. Mookie Betts is not having a good year. Freddie Freeman now got hit on the wrist, I believe, so we'll see what happens there. Teoscar Hernandez has been hurt this year. So now everybody's kind of fallen back down to the pack, and now the Blue Jays, suddenly, they look like they could have the best record in baseball at some point. The Astros also been losing some games. So yeah, there's parity right now. There's no real, like, that's definitely the favorite to win it all at this point. Now, when the Dodgers get healthy, then you could say it's the Dodgers. But right now, it's anybody's game. It's anybody's game. But the Blue Jays, they have still been playing some really good baseball since they last played the Yankees, and they were playing good baseball even before that. So the Yankees got to come in motivated, because the Blue Jays really beat them up. You know, they got some guys over there that they're going to be problems in this series once again. George Springer, 35 years old, but he looks like the George Springer from the 2017 Astros. You got Vlad, and it's funny. Vlad has after I don't think was it yesterday or whatever it was. Him and Volpe had the same amount of home runs. Could you imagine that? I mean, well, yeah, you can imagine that because it actually was a thing. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Volpe had the same amount of homers. But now I think Vlad has 13 now. So, but you got to deal with Vlad, of course. Bo Bichette, who really didn't play in the last series, he'll be playing. Addison Barger, he's going to be a problem as well. He hit a nuke yesterday against the Giants. I think it was a 2-run homer. He's been good for the Blue Jays as well this year. He's got power, and he was a problem for the Yankees. Alejandro Kirk, we know about him, an all-star this year, behind the plate. And the Yankees are seeing pretty much the same exact pitchers that they saw. Actually, no, I think they saw Barrios the last time and not Bassett. Actually, no, but it was a 4-game set, so I think they saw all of them. But they're basically seeing the same pitchers that they saw the last time. Gausman, Scherzer, and Bassett. They're seeing everybody. And the Blue Jays are going to be seeing the same pitchers as well, outside of Cam Schlittler. So, the Yankees, I guess they lined up the rotation the right way. I mean, it looks a lot better now that they took the series, but you have Rodon, you got Fried in this series, but that's who the Blue Jays saw last time, and they won every single game. Now they're going to get a good look at Cam Schlittler, see what he's all about. I don't think the Yankees are going to get swept, but if you remember, I said I didn't think the Yankees were getting swept the last time, and look what happened. My worry is if it's a tight game, are you going to be able to trust the bullpen? Not really. Now, it's really just the bridge between the starters and your back end of the rotation, or the back end of the bullpen. How are you going to bridge the gap between your starter to Weaver and Devin Williams? Well, you got Tim Hill in there, so you trust him. But if you got to go to some of these other guys like Loizica and Brubaker, if you see Brubaker in the series, that means the Yankees are not doing well. But Loizica, you would love to see Loizica get back to how he was before Tommy John surgery, because he could be a real weapon out of this bullpen. But he doesn't have it right now. There's constant traffic on the bases. He's giving up a lot of home runs. He's giving up runs in general. He's not helping. And that's why, when the Yankees brought him back, I was saying, all right, look, Loizica, when he's healthy, he is a weapon. He's not a weapon right now. So, look, the trade deadline needs to get here sooner rather than later, because they need help. They need help in that area. Now, the Yankees supposedly, allegedly, did make an offer to the Diamondbacks. There is an offer on the table for Eugenio Suarez. According to Ricky Ricardo, who is the Spanish voice of the New York Yankees. So he said that there supposedly is an offer on the table for Suarez. So this is what he said. There's a proposal on the table. 5 Yankee prospects, not Lombard, not Jones. 5 prospects, including Schlittler, to the Diamondbacks for Merrill Kelly, who's one of the Diamondback starters, Eugenio Suarez, and Jalen Beeks, a left-handed relief pitcher. And the Yankees, that's another thing. Not only do they need relief pitching, they need another left-hander in the bullpen, because they really have only had Tim Hill. Last year you had Tim Meza, and you had Caleb Ferguson and Victor Gonzalez earlier in the season, but they didn't prove to be effective. They need another left-hander. Unless it's Yarborough, unless Yarborough comes back and they just put him in the bullpen. But they need another left-handed reliever. But yeah, so Schlittler would be in the deal. They'd get Merrill Kelly, Eugenio Suarez, and Jalen Beeks. Obviously, the Diamondbacks would have to accept, whatever, if this is real. And I feel like people are conflicted with it because Schlittler looked so good in his first start, even though he did give up a couple of homers. But, he was throwing 100 miles an hour. You don't want to lose that. But I would be more willing to give up Schlittler than I am to Spencer Jones, Because maybe Spencer Jones has unlocked. He's found himself. And you don't want to give him up for a 34-year-old Eugenio Suarez, who's a rental. And odds are you're probably not going to bring him back. You're not going to want to do that. Now, if I'm trading Spencer Jones for Jose Ramirez, absolutely I would do that. But I'm not doing it for Suarez. But you're also getting, if you get one of their starting pitchers, whether it's Gallen, whether it's Merrill Kelly, and on top of that, you're getting a relief pitcher. Like Cam Schlittler, yeah, I would be open to letting him go because you're getting Luis Heel back. You're gonna have Garrett Cole back next year. You still got Fried and Rodon in the rotation. Like where does Cam Schlittler fit? Now next year, I mean, if Schlittler's not traded, you have Cole, Fried, Rodon, Heel, Schlittler. If you don't move off of Schlittler, I mean that's on paper that's a great rotation because Clark Schmidt's not going to be back next year. Unless you want to trade Clark Schmidt, like would the Diamondbacks be open? The Yankees say, "Hey, we'll trade you Clark Schmidt," and Diamondbacks say, "Yeah, we'll take him." While he's injured, Yankees could do that. I definitely would be open to trading Clark Schmidt for something, because I mean, what's his value going to be like with him being hurt? But the guy is just always hurt. When he pitches, he's great, but he just durability is a problem. He's not durable. He's hurt every year. But again, that's I'm just bringing that up. That doesn't mean anything. That's not going to happen. But next year, like I said, Cole coming back, you still have Schlittler, Fried, Rodon, Heel. I mean, I would love that rotation. It's unfortunate we couldn't have that this year. We couldn't see that this year, but the Yankees were dealt a bad hand when it came to injuries. So, or maybe Will Warren. Could Will Warren be traded? Stroman's not going to be back next year. So, we'll see. But Yankees got a lot of work to do. We say it constantly. Trade deadline is coming up. It's in 10 days as I'm recording this. So, we'll see. But hey, they are the top wildcard team right now. They're 3 games back of the Blue Jays. Yankees sweep them, they're deadlocked. So, if I'm the Yankees, try to at least take the series. And then I think they play one more time. And Blue Jays got some tough games coming up in their own right after the Yankees series, because you got this series, and then I think they play the Tigers next for 4 games, so that's going to be tough. And then after that, they got the Orioles, and then they have the Royals after that. But yeah, this stretch though, they did well against the Giants. They play the Yankees, which look, they swept the Yankees last time, but it's it's still going to be a tough series. The Yankees did have the lead in one game. They came back from 8-0. So, this is not going to be an easy series. And then you got the Tigers after that. So, we'll see. But look, the Blue Jays are playing some good ball right now. They're a good team. They're a good team. There's no question about it. So, we'll see what happens, but overall, good weekend for the Yankees. Got the series against the Braves, and let's see if they can carry that momentum into this series. So, you got Carlos Rodon tonight against Kevin Gausman. Then tomorrow is Cam Schlittler, and he will be pitching against Max Scherzer. And then you got Max Fried against Chris Bassett on Wednesday. And after this week, I will be away, so there will be no content at all. Well, maybe a little bit, maybe some updates depending on if there's trades or anything. But I will be going on vacation for about a week, from this Saturday upcoming to the following Saturday. I'll be back. So no content from me until after August 2nd. So, yeah. For some, you might be happy about it. For others, you'll be a little disappointed. But either way, Saturday I'll be going away. So hopefully the Yankees send me packing happy because I'm not really going to be able to watch them when I'm away. So, um, let me know what you guys think, your thoughts on the Yankee series from over the weekend, and let's see what happens against the Blue Jays tonight. So, as always, everybody, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate it. And make sure to follow us on all the social media platforms in the description. And wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to us on the go as well. Infinite Sports. And as always, everybody, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.